alphatauri team, or Racing Bulls, whatever you're going to call them in 2024, has added a big upgrade to really their team in general. And I'm not talking about the RB19 parts that are going to be added to the car, but another bigger factor that will help with the future of the team and currently what is happening right now going into 2024. It looks like a team that could actually pose a threat to really the top 5 we kind of have for teams. I think they're going to overtake Alpine and become a real threat. So let's talk about it. Before I get into the bigger part of the video, wanted to thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Thank you for liking and subscribing. It means the world. If you haven't, please do. Helps the channel out. You guys are amazing. Genuinely means the world to me. Let's get into the alphatauri video. For this video, I'm going to call them alphatauri because that is currently what they still are. They're not a Racing Bulls team, even though we know that's the decal. Maybe there'll be something like Visa Racing, because I know that was being discussed. Visa or Cash App, those were the two kind of main sponsors being discussed for the team. Cash App is on the Red Bull car, and now from what we know, on this alphatauri car will be the extra decals that they couldn't add already to the Red Bull car. So this is big news for them. But the even bigger news is that the sister team to Red Bull is now joining Red Bull in Milton Keynes. This is a big shift for the team, first of all, because they were originally located in Italy, Faenza. And the owner had a couple things to say for this move. He said, I'll give you my own example. When I started, I took my wife, we drove to Faenza. She said, oh, it's beautiful. We had pizza, drove out to the sea. And then she said, so what about school? So why do I use this? Why am I talking about this? Well, he talks about the potential of job opportunities for engineers here, bringing families over, working for the team. This track is close to Imola. If you guys remember, Imola flooded for this year. We didn't have that race. Yuki ended up cleaning on the streets, which is a beautiful thing that he did, but that is close to where the team is located and where that wind tunnel and everything for that car was being made. But now with them shifting over to England and really becoming closer with Red Bull for 2024, it points to question. It makes it an even bigger statement now by Zach Brown, Fred Vasseur, on the concern with them being a little too close with Red Bull. Obviously, this is a sister team. We know it is that. But if you're a new person coming into the sport and you're like, a sister team, they're working too closely together, I thought that was illegal. It does make you question it. I mean, even I question it, not being new to the sport, seeing them so closely working together, having a close floor, now actually adding an addition to the car of a front suspension for the 2024 car, which they've openly came out and said. This poses a threat to, are they passing on information? And with a guy like Adrian Newey being there, it makes it even more skeptical because that guy is a beast and anything that's given out from him could make this alphatauri car an even bigger threat. Now, obviously, we like to think that F1 keeps a good eye on this, and that's not the case. So let's talk about the car and what is coming to it. So as I mentioned, the front suspension to this car is coming. They did not have that pull rod suspension in 2023. They say that's a big regret for them to not actually take the Red Bull parts. Obviously, they say that at the end of the season, but they were the team with the biggest amount of upgrades. And I mean, they almost doubled what the second team had. They were very big on upgrading the car and really made no progress up until something like Hungary. Hungary is where Daniel Ricciardo came in, gave them a couple of setup options, and really, he was a big addition to the team. Now, I don't want to discredit Yuki or even Nick DeVries for that fact, because something recently came out, him talking about how it was tough for him leaving the team, and obviously it's tough. Don't want to discredit the two drivers, but their experience in Formula One is nothing close to a guy like Daniel Ricciardo, who even led Renault to getting a couple of podiums with his input on a setup and what to do with it. With Red Bull, obviously even posed a threat to Max Verstappen. Now, this was a young Max Verstappen, but Daniel Ricciardo is a great driver. Regardless of what you think, one of the latest breakers, some of the best highlights in our sport, and he adds a lot of real experience to the team, especially when setting up the car and building the car to a better and bigger setup window when the driver is more experienced. That's why Fernando Alonso for Aston Martin, any driver like Lewis Hamilton, all those experienced drivers add a big effect to the team when adding upgrades in the direction of the car. So taking it here, they have a new chassis coming in for 2024, which will obviously be built around practically the RB19 suspension setup. That is what will be the setup for 2023. Red Bull will probably tweak this for 2024, maybe add a couple of things to the suspension to make it even more of a threat, but that means that they can actually lower the base of their car even more. And they had a pretty effective floor. I think it was other spots where the car was actually lacking. They brought a floor that to me was very familiar to Red Bull. Now, obviously, being the sister team, closely looking raises a couple questions, but you know what? There were pictures out for the RB19. They could have used the floor and gone along with those pictures to make a floor that which they thought was effective. The car got a lot better. The pace in Brazil was outstanding. They were beating teams like Ferrari and Mercedes in 2023, even with the likes of Aston Martin on pace there, and Aston Martin got on the podium. So that car was a big threat. It was still a very draggy one. I think the drag was being held within the middle of the chassis and the rear part of the car because they just implemented that rear suspension, and Red Bull has such a good grip on it that alphatauri is still very behind in its experience. But with the new addition of a new chassis coming and that front suspension to lower, as I said, the base of the car, this could be a big factor. I talk about base a lot in these videos because that is kind of the key to these cars, and lowering that floor is the key. Evolving a already pretty decent car after a huge amount of upgrades would probably be the right step. That is kind of what Lauren Mekies even talks about with the team. Next year, we will continue our current rear and use the Red Bull front suspension from the current car at the front. This is him talking to motorsport.com and giving his words on what will actually be effective for the team stepping up into 2024. This allows them to push the boundaries of their setup a lot more. And Daniel Ricciardo was pretty comfortable in a car that had like very bad braking. Obviously the brake ducts and working on that braking will be a big thing for alphatauri. In the past years and really recent years, Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda alike have talked about how bad the braking was on the alphatauri car. This has been a pretty concerning problem for the team for a while, so maybe the suspension will help out with this, but this means more extreme braking. That front suspension has a pretty big anti-dive setup on it, so the front brakes will be used a lot more, and if you don't have any effective brake ducts to actually be able to cool off those brakes, it could be a concerning problem for alphatauri. It's still a big upgrade because adding that to the car and being able to go in a different direction is something that they've been lacking. They were pretty stuck on the concept of their car, changing so many parts in 2023, even in 2022, shifting a lot of that car, but never making no progress till they added a Red Bull part. Now being close to the team, working a lot more closely, working in the new wind tunnel, and there being a even newer wind tunnel coming for the Red Bull team in future years that will even upgrade this Red Bull squad even more and now help out whatever this team will be called in the upcoming years. With all that being talked about and with all those rumors being covered for the alphatauri car, where do you think that they will sit? I do think they will pose a threat to the bigger teams, and I think it will be concerning if they're extremely fast going into 2024. I don't expect them to fight with the likes of the top teams, but I do think they will pose a big threat in the midfield and maybe even snag a podium if they are completely on it. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please leave a like, subscribe, it'd mean the world, and peace.